All right, so Reverie, LA's own, internationally known. Thanks for rocking with us at Music Connection Magazine.
Yeah.
If you can take us to the beginning, how you got started, your influence, your foundation, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I started writing poetry as soon as I learned how to spell. I remember being in kindergarten, first grade, and being really excited about learning how to put words together and how to write what I was thinking, and since around that age, that's when I started writing, and I would always write short stories and poems. And then when I was in junior high, that's when I got introduced to underground hip-hop in LA. And that's when it hit me like, oh wow, maybe I could be a rapper, or maybe I could write rap music. Because, remember when we were little, there was no YouTube. Now everybody could rap, and everybody has a studio in their house, which is awesome. I'm all for it. But when we were kids, it was not like that. It was just MTV and the radio and BET, So I didn't think it wasn't a thought of mine that I could be a rapper one day until I discovered underground hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing raps around, I want to say it was 12, 13, and then I started recording music when I was a senior in high school. So I've always been a writer, and my words have always had a lot of power. I remember when I was a kid, I had a couple things published in books, and also a crazy story is that one time when I was in the 4th grade, we had an assignment to write a poem, and I wrote this poem and I turned it in, and my teacher accused me of plagiarism. She thought that I stole the poem.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were researching all over the internet trying to find the poem, and of course they never found the poem because I wrote it, and I was a 9-year-old. They were accusing me of this crazy, And then my teacher ended up saying, Jordan, I'm very sorry, but your work, it's just so good that I can't imagine that a 9-year-old could write something like this. So anyways, point being, my words have always been very influential and strong. And it's funny because I ran into that poem a couple years ago. I actually have it printed out. And it was a very deep, dark poem. It was a metaphor about life. And it was like, even I read it and I was like, whoa, I wrote this when I was 9. Like, that's pretty wild,
Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically how I got started, like the very beginning stages of me being a writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like when you were writing, what was like your subject matter? Like
Around that age?
Yeah.
Around that age, well, like when I was really little, or when I started writing raps?
Like early, yeah, when you were little to
before the raps.
I mean, was it consistent?
It wasn't.
Was it like
it wasn't.
different?
It was a lot. There was definitely still a lot of pain in my poetry, because I've seen other poems. I guess I saved them for when I was a kid. I saved poems and I read them, and they're very sad. There was always an outlet for me to talk about my life and my family situation and friendships and heartbreak and blah blah, But also throughout that period, I would write also short stories, and they would just be fictional, and usually they would be about families, but families that were together with the mom and the dad, because my parents got divorced when I was 4, and I feel like that really impacted me. And going back and seeing my early writing and seeing that I was writing fictional stories about families that were well put together, I guess it's something that I wanted when I was a child but didn't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. So in terms of the underground hip-hop scene at that time, who were like some of your influences?
So the first artist that I discovered that was underground hip-hop, it was Murs. And Murs is still one of my favorite rappers today. And actually now, over the last 10 plus years of my career, he's shown me a lot of love over the years, a lot of support. He put me on paid dues, he's put me on shows. I'm actually working on a collaboration album with him that I'm going to drop next month. With him and The Grouch, who is from the Living Legends, which is also another person that I grew up listening to. And when it was one of my favorite probably was my favorite hip hop group, along with Atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Those were another group that I was obsessed with their music. Atmosphere, still I'm a fan today. Also, Immortal Technique was a really, really heavy influence on my early writing. When I was around 12, 13, when I started writing raps, I would write about a lot of political things and a lot of issues in my neighborhood and the streets, and again, the dysfunction of my family, and that's pretty much what my main influences were as far as underground hip-hop. But I listened to a lot of other hip-hop and a lot of other music too. I was really into pop music, like I was really into Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and the Backstreet Boys, like all that. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1990, so all the stuff that was popular when I was a kid, like I liked all of it. Yeah, not all of it, but a lot of it. Yeah.
That's what's up. Okay, I see you with the Tupac shirt. I mean, how has he influenced you?
So for sure, Tupac has always been one of my favorite rappers as well. He is also a huge influence on me and my writing, and always has been. The thing I like about Tupac is that he's not one-dimensional. He always talks about so many things. Like, he'll talk about shooting somebody, then he'll talk about his mom, then he'll talk about the community, what the community likes, then he'll talk about Brennan had a baby, and, you know, he's just really diverse, and he was also very intelligent and very, you know, active in the community. He was an activist, and those are things that really inspire me, and those are things that I do with my music and with my life. I'm very involved in the community. I do a lot of work with the community, more than anybody that I know that's my age, especially in the rap world. I do a lot of writing workshops with kids. I go speak at drug prevention programs. I performed at the Orange County Juvenile Hall. I'm constantly doing things for the kids and for the community. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Okay, so like early on when you were, you know, developing, writing your raps, like how did you get connected in the scene? Like what, you know, how did that all emerge?
So I was not in the scene at all until I would say I was about 19. That's when I started going to shows and performing, because before that I was just always in Highland Park. That's where I'm from. That's where I was born and raised, and I was just always there. There wasn't really like hip-hop shows there or anything, like, not that I know of, you know, because I know the reason I say that is that a lot of rappers that are my age and older than me, they always talk about like Lemire Park and like Project Blow and stuff. And no disrespect to them, that shit was dope, but I was never involved in any of that stuff. That was not like what I was around, you know. And I was just really loved hip-hop by myself in Highland Park, you know. But when I was about 18, 19, that's when I started hitting up open mics. And when I started going to open mics, I would meet somebody there that would say, hey, I have this showcase here in LA, and I would ask one of my homegirls to drive me there, you know. And every time I went to a show, I would meet somebody else. And I very early on in my career realized like that networking was really important. I was realizing like, oh shit, this is giving me this opportunity, this is giving me this opportunity. So I realized like, I have to keep going to these places and saying yes to everything, you know. And even from selling tickets to perform, like I remember a few times I got scammed. I had to sell, let's say 20 tickets, and then you could open up for the bigger artists. But when you perform at 8 o'clock, nobody's there except for the 20 people that you sold the tickets to, you know. So I started realizing that was a scam, you know, and so I stopped doing that. But you know, you gotta put in a lot of work and pay a lot of dues in this industry. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was reflecting. I was like, damn, like I've been fucking scammed out of so much fucking time and money over the years, and it still happens sometimes. You know, it's inevitable. But now I have a better eye for it. Now I can see like this person's talking a lot, like bringing up, name dropping a lot, promising too much when we haven't worked together. You know, now I kind of know the red flags. But early on in my career, like everybody's early on in their career, you get fucked over a lot. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. So at this point, you already have your team set. Like nothing is missing. I mean, you know, you've been grinding a lot. Like, but like, what's next? I mean, what's, you know, in terms of touring.
I for sure wouldn't say that nothing's missing. I would for sure say there's a lot missing. And I never want to act like everything's perfect. I never want to act like I got everything together. Yes, I'm succeeding in a lot of areas. Yes, I do have a solid-ass team, and we do a lot together. But my team is very small. And we're all doing the jobs of, like, 12 people.
Right.
You know, so it's fucking crazy. The workload, like, the work never ends. I'm never bored. Like, I forgot how it feels to be bored, because there's always something to do. There's always something on my mind. Even if I'm out with friends or with my family, I'm always like, and there's an email pops up, and there's, I'll give me 1 second. You know, I'm like always writing back. And it's very time consuming, and it's a lot. It's a lot, and I definitely don't have everything together. There's definitely a lot missing that I'm working, you know, over the years, but we get more people on the team. Then some people leave off the team, or some people get kicked off of the team, or whatever. Then you got to replace somebody. Then you can add somebody. Then the team's a little bigger. But I have a very small team right now, and it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Do you feel like a major label would be a step that you want to go ahead and pursue?
I would say that is not like a blanket statement that I could say yes or no to, because I'm not going to be an artist that's going to get fucked in a deal. Like, that's for sure not going to happen to me. But if the numbers made sense and the opportunities made sense that we're going to come along with it, then yeah, it's definitely not something that I'm opposed to. One thing that I've observed from my understanding of major labels is that a lot of artists who are independent, they get signed by a label, and then they think that the label is their friend. you know, and they think, oh, the label's gonna do everything for me, and I don't have to do anything, and I can just blow my $1 million advance on bullshit and have nothing to show, and then not want to go do the interview that they say, and not want to wear blue when they say blue, or whatever it is they tell you to do. Then they get shelved. And then they say, fuck major labels, they did this and that. But it's like, you sign up for that. You have to understand this is a big corporation that gives no fucks about you or your family or where you're going through. You're just a money-making machine at that point, you know? And being that I have been independent for so long, and being that I'm not just a rapper that just only makes money on tour. You know, there's a lot of rappers out here who are like independent, and you see they have numbers on Spotify and they have numbers on YouTube, but they're broke. And they have no team with them. They don't know how to manage their business. They don't have really much to show behind the scenes. You know, it's one thing to look glorious on Instagram, and a lot of people, I see it. I can see who's doing what because I'm in it, you know. But a lot of people can't tell that. Like, just because somebody has numbers on Instagram and cosigns from people that are popping right now, it doesn't mean that they have one fucking dime in their bank account, you know. And that's also not the focus of everybody, you know. And but it's just funny seeing artists making it look like they're balling, but they're not. You know, like they wasted their fucking $5,000 that they got off of one show that one time on a fucking chain. You know, and they don't have anything. They live with their parents. They don't have a savings account. They don't have any investments. Nothing. It's a completely different thing, you know. But the reason I say all that is that I have generated a substantial amount of money myself over the past few years of doing this, and I know how to make $1,000 out of $100. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know how to do that. All they know how to do is get in the studio, make a song, make a post on Instagram. It's gonna get a lot of likes with the gold chain, and that's it. You know, but I am a businesswoman, and I have an international audience, and so if I was to get signed by a major label, I wouldn't blow my $1 million advance on bullshit. I would blow it on shit that's gonna get me the money back immediately so that I could get out of that deal. But now I have this huge next fan base that I can now make money off of, you know? Because that's what like, in my head, the objective of being on a major label should be to take your career to the next level, so then you're exposed to this whole nother audience that you're not gonna get by yourself, because I don't have $1 million to invest. I'll be very open about that. I have nowhere close to that, you know. But if I did have that, the advertising and opportunities that I could do with that would be fucking crazy. So after I did that, then I can go back to being independent and just work with this new fan base, because I know how to make money off my fan base, you know. So I don't know, it's very complicated with the whole major label, with all that stuff. It's a very complicated situation, I feel like, for most artists, from what I understand.
For sure. Okay. I mean, speaking of chains and jewelry, I don't see you with much. I see the earrings, which is dope. But, like, you know, so
they're not real.
Yeah, it's all good. But
yeah.
I mean, has that always been your mindset in terms of, like, you know, investing in assets versus liabilities? Has it always been like your, you know, like early on, like that was the goal, not to blow it on, you know what I mean, like meaningless things or whatever?
I wouldn't say that was even a thought in my head, because I didn't have money like that. You know, like the first few years of my career, I had nothing. You know, I just had enough to pay my car. I had enough to pay my rent. I had enough to pay for one of my homegirls to help me. I had enough money to invest on going on tour, because early in my career, nobody would book me for tour. I would see all these artists going on tour, and I would feel entitled. I would feel, oh, I'm doper than that. I rap better than them. How come nobody takes me on tour? And, like, I quickly realized, oh, nobody's coming to save me. And I always tell people that's, like, one of the best advices I could get for independent artists. Like, no one's coming to save you. You're not the one in a million. Nobody's going to hand you $1 million on a silver platter. Like, it's not going to happen. I realized that really, really early in my career. So I started taking myself on tour. And what that means is that I would have to book all the venues in all these different cities and or states that we would go to. I would also have to book the van and pay for all the gas, and I'm bringing the whole tour. I booked all my tour mates. I paid for the equipment that we carried in the back of the van, like being the sound system, the DJ stuff. I took my brother with me. He was the DJ. You know, we were making the music ourselves. I was having my homegirl work the tickets at the door. I was having somebody else run the merchandise. You know, it was always really hands-on everything. But anyways, point being that back then, I was just making crumbs. You know, it was just enough to cover that. You know, and because I was going on tour and I was already getting views on YouTube and followers or whatever, people assume that you have money, and it goes back to what I was saying. Like, rappers can paint this picture that they have money, but they don't. Right. They don't have shit. I know who has money, who doesn't. I could see it very clearly, you know. And not to say that that makes somebody better than somebody else, but it's just interesting that people will paint themselves a certain way, and the public will believe it. Mm-hmm. You know, and just like I wasn't painting myself like that back then, but people thought I was like balling just because. But I was driving a fucking 10-year-old Honda Civic. I even toured in my Honda Civic. I drove that shit all the way to fucking Arizona, and like, you know, I was like fucking bombing it. You know, I was wearing fucking shirts that people gave me, and like making my own flyers. If you look at 10 years ago at the flyers I was posting, me and Loudon made all that shit. Like it was like very from the ground up, and so to make that long answer short, like hell no, that was not a thought in my head to think about the future. And I only started thinking about the future very recently within the last few years of my career. Yeah, so it was only very recently that I started thinking about things like that within the past few years. And I would say a lot of it had to do with the people that I talked to about business, you know, because people that are independent rappers or are entrepreneurs, they start talking to me like, oh, when are you gonna buy a house? When are you gonna do this? What are you gonna do with your money? Like, you should be putting some money away. And at first I was putting money away, but it was only a little bit of money, you know. And then I started thinking about like, oh, maybe I think I do want to go to the next level of entrepreneur. And to me that meant, okay, then you have to own properties, you know, because, and then, like I said, over the years, my team has been growing. I'm getting to live in nicer places, getting to go on vacations more often, you know, getting to record with better equipment, yada, yada, you know, I make more money every year. So, yeah, when I started making more money, it was finally a possibility to even start thinking about that, you know, and so now I am investing. I invest in like crypto and stocks. I'm saving up to buy a rental property. It's another investment. I'm not saving up to buy a house to live in. I'm saving up to buy a rental property as an investment that I'm gonna have somebody manage for me, and I'm still gonna be renting over here in LA because I have to be here. I'm not gonna pay for a house in LA because it's gonna be in a shitty neighborhood that I don't want to live in, so I'm gonna instead buy a rental property like in Chicago or in Detroit or somewhere where it's cheaper, and I don't have to be there, and it could just be running by itself. So, you know, it was a lot of like switching my mindset too, from am I gonna just have fun in the moment, or am I gonna really grow old and have a family one day and have assets to keep us all comfortable, you know? That was the other thing too. Like, honestly, I thought I was gonna be dead by the time I was 19. I was not planning to be 32. You know, so, but I'm like, oh, I'm 32. What if I live to be 52? Like, I need to have some shit to fall back on. What if I want to retire one day? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever retire. But if I want to take it a little slower, I want to have things that I could depend on for income. You know.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Okay. And we covered a lot. Is there like some artists that you are looking forward to working with or want to work with?
I don't really think about artists that I want to work with because I just don't. I guess it would be because, like I said from the beginning, I had to do everything myself. Everything was very hands-on. So I don't really even think about who I'm going to collab with next because I just feel like when it comes, it's going to come. And I also don't want to depend on anybody for any kinds of opportunities. Like, what I've learned is that people will fuck with you when you prove that you're worth it, you know what I mean? So as the years have gone by in my career, now more and more people want to work with me, which is dope. I had to pay my dues to get there. I'm not talking shit about that, but I just like to work with people that want to work with me at the moment, you know. And like I said, right now I'm making a collaboration album with Murs and The Grouch, and so that's gonna be super dope. That's a collaboration that I'm very excited about because I've been listening to them since I was a kid, like I said, and I feel like it's going to be really great for the three of us because we all have a lot to offer each other. Yeah, but honestly, I don't really work with a lot of people, especially like people that I don't have like a genuine connection with. I've been doing more collaborations lately, and it's with people that I actually fuck with. Like, if you see me on a track with somebody, 9 out of 10 times, they're my friend in real life. Like, they're not just somebody that somebody contacted the manager and said, hey, we should make a song, or like, I'll never fucking pay for a collaboration. Like, I just don't really care. Like, I'm already doing my thing on my own. I don't need to do that. I'd rather just make everything organic and have a mutual respect between people to work together. That's what I prefer as an artist. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. How'd you get your name, Reverie?
Reverie, I used to do graffiti like a fucking maniac, and that's what I used to tag.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was back to me being obsessed with words in school. One day I was doing the assignment, you know, when the teacher gives you words and you have to look up the definitions. And so I would hate that homework assignment because since I was so obsessed with words since I was a kid, that assignment would take me like 2 or 3 hours because I would start reading the dictionary. The dictionary never ends, you know, but if the word was nirvana, I look up the word nirvana, and then I look up all the words after nirvana, and I'm just like learning words. And one day I was doing that assignment, fucking a couple hours in probably, I was reading the dictionary, and I saw the word reverie, and it just stood out. And I was like, reverie, what is that? And it's like, daydream. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm always daydreaming. Everybody's always like, what are you doing? Because I'm always like spacing out, you know. And so I saw it, and I said, that's going to be my fucking name. Because at the time, I was already doing graffiti, but it was like stupid little spots on a pole or like in a bathroom. And if I remember correctly, at the time I was writing baby, and I wanted to start doing like real pieces and like with big cans and like, you know, but I wanted to have an original name because I knew baby, like how many babies is there in Highland Park? Probably 1 million, you know. So I wanted to have a name that would stand out and like a piece. So that was my name, and then that was when I really started doing graffiti, like around, I would say, I picked up that name around 15, 16, and then I was just putting in a lot of work around Northeast LA in my neighborhood, and a lot of people knew me from my graffiti. They didn't know who I was or what I looked like. They just knew my name because I was writing everywhere. Like I'm talking about like how I am with my career now with my rap. Like I'm doing everything and I'm everywhere. That's how I was with graffiti. Like I was everywhere and I was obsessed, and I didn't want people to know what I looked like because I didn't want to get arrested, you know. And also it got me a lot of trouble being in graffiti, like in the streets, like not even necessarily with the law, even though I have gotten arrested and blah blah. But I'm talking about like I've been jumped so many times. I got in so many fist fights because of graffiti. I've been shot at while I was doing a piece before. Just a lot of it came with a lot of physical pain, like literally, you know. And when I started rapping, I just went by the same name because I didn't know it was gonna go anywhere. I just put it on MySpace, you know. And back in the MySpace days when I put my music up, I actually didn't show my face. Nobody knew what I looked like for like a couple years of me making music because I didn't want to go to jail, you know. Yeah. But that's also a reason why my music started buzzing faster, because I already had the streets in Northeast LA captivated by Reverie. So when people saw Reverie on MySpace making rap music, they're like, oh shit, that's the fucking writer, you know. And so that's how I got my, like I was already buzzing from the graph. So when I put the music up, it was like boom, like it was already like, oh shit. Like, so I feel like that's why I got a lot of street credit in the beginning and why the streets were really talking about me. So I feel like it definitely helped my career. But yeah, a couple years into my career, my older brother Ryan, he's into like marketing and web designing. He makes like a lot of dope websites, and he was like one of the first people to do that like fucking 10-15 years ago. So he told me, hey, your music's cool, but you need to show your face. I know you want to be like Miss Graph Writer, but if you want to do music, you have to show your face because you have a marketable face. And I was like, no, it's not about that. It's about the art and blah. You know, I was like super just graph and underground. I wasn't thinking about business at all. I didn't fucking care, you know. And one day I said, you know, I'm gonna take your advice. And then that was like another boom, like another fucking big change in my career was when I started showing my face, because everyone's like, oh shit, that's how she looks. Like, she looks good, you know. Like we were wondering what she looked like. And so it was when I was 19 that I started showing my face. And that was when I guess I started fucking with marketing and understanding that you needed to sell yourself as a product. That was when the first seed was planted. Yeah.
Okay. So, tell us about Satori Mob.
So Satori Mob is my clothing line, and I started the Satori Mob in 2017, so we're about 5 years old now. We're an international brand. We ship all over the world, in every continent except for Antarctica. So Antarctica, if you're watching, I'll send you a care package. Let me know. But we have streetwear. We're doing more stuff now. Like that's a Satori Mob purse. We do sweats, hoodies, hats. We're doing jewelry now. We have posters, and then of course I have like my CDs and my vinyls up on my website as well. But I was pressing shirts for a minute before I started the brand. I was pressing shirts like probably, I don't know, it's probably around the same time when I first started showing my face, maybe like around 2010, 2011. People started asking me for the shirts. They said, oh, do you have a Reverie shirt? Reverie shirt? And after like maybe 3-4 people asked me at the shows, I was like, oh shit, I think I need to make shirts. Like this is cool, you know. And somebody approached me and they said, hey, you should make shirts. And I said, oh yeah, I was just been thinking about it. Let's make a shirt then. How do I do it? Oh, I'll invest in you. I'll do everything for you. I have a design. I have the shirts. I have the silk screen. Blah blah. I'll give you half the profits. I said, hell yeah, that's fucking cool. So then that happened. But of course, then when it comes time to pay me, then all of a sudden, oh, but I have to pay the screen printer. Oh, but I had to get the shirts. Oh, I had to get the more expensive shirts because they were out of the cheaper one. Oh, and I have to pay for the shipping. Oh, I had to pay for the design. So they started ripping me off. You know, and quickly I caught on. Like, wait a minute, this is ripping me off. You know, like, this is not cool. So I started pressing my own shirts, my style, and saving the money to make the flip. You know, I saved the money to print my own shirts, to have a design. I started making my own designs and just learning how to do Photoshop, and me and Loudon would make the graphic designs, you know, and that's how it all started. But then around, let's say 2015, 2006, yeah, probably 2015, that's when I decided I wanted to make a brand, not just merchandise that all said Reverie, because everything just said Reverie for the first few years. But I decided that I wanted to make an actual streetwear brand that people could wear. And so it was about 2 years that I was trying to come up with the brand name. And I had a couple other brand names that I actually even made logos for and had like plans to release, but I didn't release them because they just didn't feel right. But then when I came up with the Satori Mob concept, that was it. Like, it was like kind of like when I was reading the dictionary and found my name. It was like that same feeling, like, oh shit, like I saw the word in a book again, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is the fucking word, Satori. And so that's how I developed my brand. Yeah. Now we're 5 years in.
That's what's up. What does Satori mean?
It means sudden enlightenment.
Okay.
And it's a Buddhist-derived term. It's Japanese. It's actually a Japanese word that we took from them, and it's a term, and it's known in Buddhism mostly. But it means a sudden enlightenment. And so what that means to me, it's like, you know, they talk about enlightenment, and none of us can reach enlightenment unless we're a monk, dedicating our whole life to solitude and deep thought and meditation, you know, in the hills somewhere. But the rest of us, we're just, you know, mere mortal men, and sometimes we can just get a glimpse of what living in the moment really means. We can get a glimpse of that enlightenment, to be present with our thoughts and with our surroundings. Like, you know, for example, when you're at the beach, maybe you'll experience a sudden enlightenment, meaning that you're actually in the moment. You're not thinking about tomorrow, you're not thinking about yesterday, you're not thinking about what we have to do after this. It's like these rare moments that are very rare in life, where you're at the beach, sitting on the sand, you feel the sand in your toes, you feel the breeze on your face, you hear the ocean, you see the sun, you taste the salt water in your mouth. It's like when all of your senses are active, but to only what's happening in the current. You know, and it's really rare that you experience those moments. It's usually going to be when you're in nature, you know. But so that those few 5 seconds where you're not thinking, where you're just admiring the beach and literally feeling the beach, that's called a Satori. That's a sudden enlightenment. It's just a little taste of enlightenment. So I thought that was a very powerful concept. I got it from the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I read a lot of books, and that's where I got that from. And then of course I put the mob, because you gotta have some street shit in there where the streets don't give a fuck, you know. The streets don't want to hear about enlightenment, but if you throw it in there, disguise it with mob, then, oh, what is this? And then I get to have these discussions where people are gonna see it, and then you say, oh, it's a really cool concept. Let me dig into that. What is meditation? What is living in the moment? What is the power of now? What is, you know what I mean? So that was another reason why I didn't launch those other brands that I had, because I just didn't feel like they were deep enough. I wanted to stimulate people's like imagination and philosophies when they looked at my brand. I didn't want to just be another fuck bitches get money brand, you know, which is, that shit's cool too, you know, but I feel like it's the same thing as my music. Like, I do talk a lot about a lot of street shit. I talk about a lot of, you know, just aggressive talking shit, but I also talk about a lot of deep philosophical shit in my music if you really get into it. So I wanted to kind of have the same message with my streetwear brand. Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I mean, again, we covered a lot. Who are like your top 5 MCs or artists of all time?
Of all time? My top, for sure Tupac is on that list. I would say for sure Murs is still one of my fucking favorites. And Slug of Atmosphere is still one of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, whenever people ask me this question, I always just say them 3. I don't even need like a 5. Like, those are just my favorites. And not to say that there's not a bunch of dope other rappers, because I listen to all these people right here, you know, but those are, I guess I would have to tie those into also saying, like, those are the people who had the biggest influence on me as a writer and as a rapper and as a hip-hop lover, you know. Like, those are the people that made me, like, love hip-hop, people that touched my fucking, the inside of my fucking soul, and still do when I hear their music, you know. So I would say those are my favorites of all time. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. And what's one piece of advice you would give to any up-and-coming artists, anybody trying to come up in the game?
I would say to just really realize that this shit is hard. And that's why when I do these interviews, I talk about all the grimy shit. I talk about how I don't have all my shit together. I talk about how there's missing pieces in my team, how I'm not a fucking millionaire. Like, I'm not trying to paint a perfect picture for anybody. This shit is fucking hard. Like, it's not for the weak. You have to have thick skin. If you think you're going to get rich and famous in 2 years, you're not. Just give up now. Don't waste your time. Another thing I would say is that you have to take baby steps. Like, one of the biggest mistakes I hear a lot of people make when they come to me, when they're new artists, they're like, oh, I invested $4,000 in my studio. And, like, I'm like, why? Like, why did you invest $4,000 in a studio? Like, you could have bought a fucking $500 setup and then made a, like, fucking at least 5 music videos, you know, like with somebody who would do a project for cheaper, and you would have more content to put out. When you're just starting your first album, nobody is gonna listen for the quality of the equipment. They're gonna listen for your words. You don't need to worry about the quality of the equipment. You're not even know how to use it, first of all. You know, like, you don't need to waste $4,000 on a setup. You don't know how to use it. You haven't even made $400. How are you spending $4,000 on something? And or like they tell me, oh, I've spent $7,000 on my project. Like, why did you spend $7,000 on your project? Like, oh, I recorded in Capitol Records. Like, why would you record in Capitol Records? You haven't made a dime. You don't know how to sell anything. Like, you need to start small. Start very small. Like, you don't want to throw, like, it's like that saying, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, you don't want to do that. That's the biggest mistake. Because if you invest $7,000 in your first project, you're gonna make $200 back, and you're gonna quit then. You're just, oh, I wasted $7,000. Oh my God, I ruined everything. Why did I waste all this money? You're just like getting ahead of yourself. It's not healthy for your mind, and it's gonna crush your spirit. But this shit's fucking hard, and I would say that anything's possible. I definitely would also say that anything's possible. Like I told you, you hear this whole interview, you heard what I had to do in the beginning, and it's still fucking hard for me, you know, and it's still gonna be hard no matter what level of life you're at. Like, there's pictures of all these fucking really famous artists right here that are multimillionaires by now, you know, the ones that are still alive, and they have just bigger problems. They still probably have financial problems on certain fucking times of the year, you know. The expenses just keep getting bigger and bigger, and being an entrepreneur is not consistent. So I would also say, if you had a good month, if you made $4,000 this month, don't depend on next month being $4,000, because it's for sure not going to be that. If you had a $4,000 month in your first year of making music, like, you got lucky that month. And it's not, don't plan the next month to be $4,000. You better save $3,000 of that fucking dollars and reinvest that shit.